So the majority of my research focuses on the intersection of healthcare disparities with various dermatologic conditions such as skin cancers, cutaneous manifestations of infection, and presentations in pediatric patients. I think the biggest impact of my research so far has been uncovering disparities among presentations and outcomes for skin cancers in various underrepresented populations, whether that be racial and ethnic minorities or children. Additionally, I was able to uncover some personal interests of mine as it relates to presentations of skin conditions in patients with HIV. I think research can sound very scary, especially for those of us that have gone just straight into learning the clinical aspect of medicine, but it's really the foundation upon which we're treating patients and discovering new innovations. And so I think having the ability to have someone help demystify the process has been instrumental in learning that this is something that I absolutely can do and something that I am interested in doing. My greatest mentor, not only in research, but throughout my entire medical school journey, has been Dr. Michael Moncure. We first met in the STAR program a couple years ago. And from the beginning of my first year of medical school, he has been my most adamant supporter. I had zero research experience whenever I first started several years ago, and he personally taught me not only the process of looking at different kinds of data and how to analyze it from there, but how to actually intersect this with our shared interests in advocacy, as well as mentorship for future generations.
The main project that I had the opportunity to present, and I've kind of worked on the most of my duration in medical school, has been one looking at what influences students' ability to speak in the operating room and what encourages them to do so versus encourages them to stay silent. The impact of having students feel like that they know their responsibility, that they know their role in the operating room and feel more comfortable in that means that education for a student is more efficient from start to finish. And that learning curve is huge for a student. So anything we can do to help reduce that learning curve so that they can pick up what they need to be doing faster is impactful in terms of medical education as a whole. On top of that, if a student feels like they're comfortable, then they, instead of just being an observer in the operating room and potentially an obstacle or burden, they can take a more active role in helping out the operating room procedure. Then the operating room procedure and then the patient benefits from that because the student in there is now a benefit as opposed to a burden. The most impactful part of this project, I believe, when I was doing these interview series and asking students and residents and attendings and OR staff the questions that we were asking about trying to get this information, it was before I had started my own surgical rotations, and I was able to kind of shorten that learning curve that I had talked about because I was doing the research for it. And it was very impactful in how I approached my surgical experiences after that. And I think that just brings me back to the fact that this is important research for students to see in general because it allows them to reduce that same learning curve for themselves. And instead of spending the first half of your surgical rotation learning the ropes and feeling comfortable, you know what needs to be done to feel comfortable, and you can go straight into being a benefit to the operating room. Dr. Sutkin believes in a very strong investment in research, and his approach to that and his approach to research being one of creative collaboration, I think was a huge impact on me for teaching me that research can be creative, research can be interesting, and research can and should be exciting. I think a lot of students kind of miss that at times, but Dr. Sutkin was a very instrumental part in teaching me all that research could be, and I'm very appreciative of that.
My research spans different realms of interventional radiology. I've done projects all the way from healthcare disparities and then also looking at specific procedures in IR. I think some of my most meaningful work has been in healthcare disparities. In the last few years, I've been using large language models to develop patient education resources to explain the most common procedures in interventional radiology. With a similar interest in mind, I also worked on projects using the National Insurance Database. One specific procedure I focused on was the TIPS procedure, which is essentially creating a shunt in the liver for patients with portal hypertension and cirrhosis. And what we really found when we did that project was that the rural areas in our country tend to be underserved, especially in respect to this procedure. And so a lot of these projects that I've done are now informing policy at the government level. And so we are taking all this data that we have to create new policies, to create new ways of increasing awareness about the procedures and the different ways interventional radiology can help patients. Research has shaped my approach to medicine by really instilling in me a deep commitment to patient-centered, evidence-based medicine and care. So as I move forward in the future, I'm going to be driven by the fact that each study, each patient, each data point has the potential to change lives. And I'm very motivated to carry that perspective with me as I go into medicine and then even beyond. My research mentors have been pivotal in my journey. They pushed me out of my comfort zone to really see where my research can go and what new innovative ideas we can come up with to further change the wheel. They not only gave me the space to grow, but they also were there as a pillar of support when I needed them. And I think for me, that's the best way I learned. So I credit a lot of my success to them.
I did a year-long research fellowship at Northwestern University in dermatology, and my research primarily focuses on the creation and the implementation of clinical practice guidelines. So 2 of the projects that were most meaningful to me was first a project on the rare tumor, primary cutaneous mucinous carcinoma. We created guidelines for the diagnosis, the management, and the follow-up for this tumor. My second major project was creating guidelines for cosmetic procedures in minors or those who are under 18. We wanted to standardize the patient selection and the pre, peri, and post-operative process for these patients. My research year was a huge time of discovery. I hadn't had much exposure to multidisciplinary research, so I thought that it was extremely valuable in that I got to work with people from all different specialties within medicine and also lead larger projects. For example, guidelines panels of 50 to 100 participants. So it was a very big time of learning, exploration, meeting new individuals, and really opening my eyes to both dermatology and medicine as a whole. I think that my research has impacted my approach to medicine in that I realized that it's very, very collaborative. And for us to be able to put out these guidelines, we needed to draw in multiple different specialties. And I think that collaboration always leads to more fruits of success. My research mentor, even though he's extremely busy, we met every single week, one-on-one, for multiple hours at a time, and I really think that during that time he helped me improve my approach to research, my critical thinking, my manuscript writing skills. So I think that has really made me grow as a future scientist.